This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. We are joined by some friends from South Africa today. I'm guessing you're in the Swartland right now.
We are, yeah. We're sitting in Ruby Castile.
We have the famed Chris Mullineux from Mullineux and Leeu. And we also have winemaker Gynore Hendricks. How are you today, Gynore?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Toby?
Excellent. This is your very first time on Good Food Revolution, so a real pleasure to meet you.
The pleasure's all mine.
What I would like to do today is speak about the three different labels that you have down there, the three different, I guess they're wineries, and the differences between them, because we've gone over the history of the winery before, but I'd love to talk about the different philosophies of the three wineries, what you're trying to do there, and what's exciting the two of you right now.
Yeah, awesome. Well, firstly, thank you for taking the time to chat to us, and we're very honored to have our wines growing in availability and awareness in Canada in general and Ontario specifically. So, yeah, thank you. A lot of people know us for our Mullineux winery, which is the winery that my wife Andrea and I started in 2007 in the Swartland. So we're very much a Swartland producer. It's an amazing wine region just north of Cape Town, blessed with a beautiful, dry, kind of Mediterranean climate. So yeah, really amazing for more natural styles of farming and winemaking.
Yes.
And also blessed with an incredible resource of old vines, particularly Chenin. So for our Kloof Street, which is our introduction label, and our Mullineux wines, we're exclusively working with Swartland wines of origin, with a focus on Chenin and Syrah, and then blends with those two varieties. So very focused, but we really think those are the best grapes for this area, and they just make wines with a lot of natural intensity, a lot of natural purity, but an amazing fresh balance and elegance at the same time. So they're, I think, really show a very exciting side of what South Africa can do.
Super.
Yeah.
Now, Great Heart and Leeu Passant are actually new wines to me, I have to say. I think I may have tasted one of them in the past, but please tell me a little bit about the philosophies surrounding those two labels.
Yeah, so I'll chat about Leeu Passant, and Gynore, being the winemaker for Great Heart, will chat about that.
Fantastic.
So as I said, Mullineux is all about Swartland, but Andrew and I were very aware of a lot of really interesting and exciting vineyards outside of the Swartland.
Right.
And I think South Africa, it's as a wine country, we have a very, very long history and a long heritage. But it's only since about the mid-90s that we've really become internationalized, and we've kind of started really getting a lot of international exposure in terms of wines that we can taste and understand different approaches around the world. And the regions are starting to develop an amazing identity. So, 20, 30 years ago, we didn't really understand that there was a difference between the potential of the Swartland or Stellenbosch or Constantia.
Right.
People would plant the same grapes everywhere, and it was not as focused as it is now. So I think what the Swartland did really well is show that you can focus on a few grapes and do them incredibly well, and make just beautiful wines that have a sense of place to them. And that started to happen now in other areas. So Andrew and I were really interested to work with a lot of other vineyards and grape varieties, but we never wanted to kind of mess with the Swartlandness, I suppose, of Mullineux and Kloof Street.
Yes, I understand.
So in 2013, we started a new winery outside the Swartland, which is called Leeu Passant. It's based in Franschhoek, and it's focused on working with grape varieties that we don't work with in the Swartland, and also regions that we don't work with, obviously, in the Swartland. So the approach to farming is the same, as natural as possible. So for Mullineux, for instance, here at Roundstone, we're in conversion to organic, and we're doing the same with some of the Leeu Passant vineyards, so the Wellington Cinsault, for instance. And then following the same winemaking approach, so natural ferments, not adding funny additives to the wines, really just trying to make wine that's precise, not over oaked, not over extracted, and really showing our South African sunshine. So you're getting beautiful texture and intensity, but it's always a balanced, fresh and pure intensity. And I think that's what South Africa is doing really well at the moment. So the varieties there are Chardonnay from Stellenbosch that we do, which is it's one of the most exciting Chardonnays in South Africa. And then we do work with the Cinsault, that's South Africa's oldest red wine vineyard, planted in 1900. So one of the first vineyards planted after phylloxera in the country. So to think back, it was planted in the times where there were no, or not even the Model T Ford was here in South Africa yet.
Okay.
So it's it's just kind of like stepping back in time. And then we work with some Stellenbosch Cabernet, Cabernet Franc as well. So just working with each grape variety where we think they're most exciting in South Africa. But obviously, because they're different varieties planted in different places, the expression is completely different to what we're getting out of Mullineux. Yeah.
So how does that feel working outside of your comfort zone, Chris?
We do a lot of driving, I suppose. That's the one weird thing. But,
yeah.
But we're working with I think it was a little bit of a mindset change to work with vineyards that ripened much more slowly. I think that was the big thing. Swartland is very warm, very dry. We've got a lot of sunshine, so the grapes ripen very quickly. So for us, very much in the Swartland, it's about making sure we can pick as quickly as possible while there's still good freshness and purity in the fruit. Whereas in Stellenbosch, for instance, particularly we're working with fruit very close to the False Bay side, so near the ocean, and the vineyards ripen much slower. So that was our paradigm shift for us to slow down and get to Stellenbosch and take our time and not pick everything too quickly, because the vineyards we're working with they're really late ripening, but not late with a lot of jamminess and alcohol and sweetness. It's late because they just taken a long time to ripen, but at a beautiful fresh balance. So that was the main challenge. I think we're working with great vineyards. So in the cellar, I think Gynore will agree. Andrea, who's my wife, who's the winemaker for the winery for both Mullineux and Leeu Passant. She follows a very kind of natural, non-interventionist approach with purity, and that's the same approach in both wineries. So it's really just letting these very special vineyards express themselves. Yeah. So.
Do you have the same?
But I did worry about having to get my passport stamped between Swartland and Stellenbosch, but luckily there's no border there, so it's okay because we drive a lot. Yeah.
Now, did you have the same depth of old vine sourced fruit in these different regions?
Yes, so that's a really good question. Obviously, the Wellington Cinsault vineyard we're working with is a super old vineyard, and there's a lot of old vine Cinsault in South Africa. The Chardonnay and Cabernet only really came in South Africa much later. So, Chardonnay, Cabernet started coming in Cabernet a bit earlier in the 60s and 70s, and then Chardonnay only really in the sort of 80s. So there is a little bit of old vine cab. We do work with one old block,
right?
But a lot of the blocks we're working with are sort of 10 to 20 years old, that sort of spectrum. So they're getting mature, but they're not as ancient and gnarly as the Cinsault and some of the Chardonnays that we work with. So we specifically wanted to work with Cab and Cab Franc and in these cool sites, but those vines are not as old as the Cinsault or the Chenin would be that we.
Right. Now, Chris, as much as I like to hear your dulcet tones talking about wine every time I see you, I think we should shift over to the star of the show here, Gynore.
Yes.